when the first TV was invented, people would try to imitate radio on TV, essentially, or like, whether it's like you don't capture the whole kind of the vastness of this new tech, of this new this new tool. You just see this as, okay, so how, or maybe like even more close, more relevant example is like, we had internet, and then everybody said, yeah, it's like newspapers but online. Yeah, so let's just like move all the newspapers online, and we are going to be done. Of course we are not done. Yeah, so because it's just, this is not how this things works. The new tech, it's like new paradigm, new interactions, and we are just going to figure it all out, and this is what's exciting.
We're going through something absolutely historic.
Technologies across the board are growing exponentially.
It's a disruption that's going to completely redefine the way businesses compete.
In the next decade, we're going to lose 40% of today's Fortune 500 companies.
The exponential growth of computing is continuing.
AI is nowhere near its full potential.
Whether you like it or not, that the future cannot be stopped by anyone.
Welcome back to the Future Tech and Foresight podcast. As always, I'm your host, Mark Verbenkov. Okay, so over the last few months, like hopefully many of you that listen to the podcast, I've been trying to digest as much content about generative AIs, LLMs, and the future of work possibilities, and of course the issues that this new wave of AI is bringing up. So I actually happened across an article titled "My First 2 Months as a Prompt Engineering Intern," and in the article, with my guest today, Michal Przadka, shared his thoughts and insights on how he integrated artificial intelligence, and specifically generative AI and ChatGPT, into his everyday life. So over 2 months, he had the opportunity to use GPT-4 and other tools in pretty much all aspects of his life, and shared a summary of what he did and learned in the article. So of course, naturally, I was curious how generative AI could be used for things other than like what we typically hear, being more efficient at work, how to build or help build a business, which seems to be kind of the main idea circulating around the internet. So naturally, I reached out and set up today's, actually the longest conversation to date on the podcast with Michal. So though we do talk about how he was able to integrate generative AI in most parts of his life and how he benefited from doing so, we also really focus a long time on diving deeper into ideas related to our concerns and particularly our hopes with this powerful technology. And of course, how the future might look when all of us start using ChatGPT or just generative AI in a more routine, habitual, or day-to-day sort of way. So before I give a brief intro to Michal and start our fascinating discussion, I just want to mention that, as per usual, the podcast will take a pause over August, so that this will actually be the last episode for the next month. So instead of doing my usual 2-week trek this year, I'm actually in the final stages of setting up my strategic foresight consultancy, which I've mentioned a number of times. So we'll be doing one last big sprint and come back in September with an entirely new setup business with its website, the branding, etc., which I'll mention when I see you guys back in September. So without further ado, so Michal is a consultant with a 20-plus year journey at the intersection of business, technology, and data. His experience spans from strategy formulation and change management to product development, process improvement, and lean operations. He has worked in both startups and established corporations in diverse roles such as being a team leader, transformation leader, C-level executive, CEO, and board member. Though he has always been centered around leveraging technology to drive business value, Michal is now on a mission to guide companies through the post-LLM world and help them harness the power of AI for sustainable success through his own newly established consultancy. So I had a really great time talking to Michal and hope that this episode helps you to understand the powers and benefits of ChatGPT, but also think a little bit more about AI in general and how it will change and maybe even in many ways transform our lives in the coming years ahead. Well, hi there, Michal. Thank you very much for coming on to the podcast today. I think we've both been looking forward to the conversation, especially as it pertains to maybe the the hottest topic that's been going around, I guess, in tech circles and maybe even in the world for the last several months. So I'm really happy to have you on today to talk about
my pleasure. Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah. So I think lots of people have read the article that you wrote, which initially connected us. Some people haven't read it, so we'll be looking through a number of the things that you've written in there. But I want to start off the conversation with kind of getting maybe your first impression on ChatGPT. I've talked about my first impression before on the podcast, but I want to hear the first time that you heard about ChatGPT and the first time that you used it, because I think that's something that, you know, it might be like a light bulb moment or one of these, I can't remember the specific term, but like key moments in people's lives as we continue into the future. So if I could get you.
And indeed, I remember it very well. I remember my friend who introduced this to me, Mariusz. And, you know, maybe a little bit about my background. I'm a computer scientist by education. Yeah, so I did computer science. I did sociology as well. And I've been within tech pretty much most of my life. And then I remember when first I heard it from this friend, and he was like, he's also a software engineer. He said something like, "You have to see this. This is unbelievable." And then I did look at it, and I just played with. I'm not even sure whether this was this kind of this playground website or actual ChatGPT. I mean, there were different. In fact, I was not even sure how to use it at the beginning.
Sure.
And then I was just like, no, this can't be true. It's just unbelievably good. I mean, you feel like you're talking to a person. It responds as a person, and it can do all kinds of stuff. I don't remember what was my first, like, I think we were discussing some improvements in our work. We were both working in a similar environment, and we were thinking like, maybe we can use this for like writing emails and like summarizing stuff that, you know, we need to pass to others, or maybe and I just played with this kind of use cases, and those use cases blew my mind. I mean, you just ask it to generate an email or summarize an email in English, and you want to pass it into Polish, maybe changing the style, and it just worked. And and again, I felt that it's impossible. I felt that it's magical. I even wrote a little piece on my blog about that, and then it was just well, I guess uphill or downhill depending on your perspective from there. It was it's a huge rabbit hole that I've been walking over the last 6 months, I guess.
Yeah, I think this is typically a similar experience that most people have, right? They're like, okay, what is this? You try it out, your mind is initially blown, and then, especially for me, your mind just kind of bubbles up with other type of ways of using this. It's like, oh, this can be used here, this can be used here. And as you continue to use it, there's like more and more opportunities that this can be used to, you know, create efficiencies, or, you know, save a little bit of time doing this, or help other people that are struggling with other things. You know, I'm helping my family all the time by using ChatGPT that they're, you know, not too familiarized with. So yeah, it's a fascinating.
But I want to just mention, because you are right, and you know, when you look at this on the pragmatic level and you just see the value, it itself is like mind blowing how much value you can extract if you know how to use it. But I just want to come back to this initial thought I had, especially talking to this other software engineer and many other people with technical background, like the thought of, how is this even possible? I mean, what does it do to talk to you the way it talks, and to extract meaning of things that it learned or it's seen? I mean, you know, we can go in details of how these things are trained and how they are, you know, what's going on behind the scenes. But even knowing the thing that's going on behind the scenes roughly, you just have this feeling of like, no, this is like magical. I mean, this is like what's going on. So I've been on this path for a good couple of months, and I still feel like, you know, sometimes in fact, even today I was doing some little task about, like, I fed Excel document, and I wanted to write Google script about this document, and it did it perfectly. And I was just like this is impossible. Like how you can get so much for a system that you barely understand. I mean, you know what I mean? Like just on the technical ground, that it's, you know, it's doing something, but then there is some sort of emergence that you see on many levels. Again, I'm rambling. I'm sorry, but it's just I really wanted to make this point that, at least for me, this was the initial like probably what's the word, like ignited the whole interest, and this kind of like all those emotions, that this is like, it's crazy. It's just unbelievable. I want to explore this. I want to learn about this. I want to like apply it to every single area of my life. I briefly after that, I had conversation with my wife. She started using it. We showed it to the kids with our supervision. The kids have been playing with it, and you know, since then, the article came from just this exploration, and that is still going on, to be honest.
Yeah. I think that's not only is it a beautiful sentiment, but I think it's also it encapsulates the age in which we're living in, right? There's this, I'm going to butcher the quote, but it's something like, you know, science fiction is becoming science fact, or, you know, we're living in an age of magical technologies, right? What we used to think of impossible almost yearly, now it's going to be even short, like month to month. There's fascinating technologies that are going to bring so many benefits to our lives that we never even thought were possible in the past. And I think from what I've also been hearing from people that are outside of the technological realm, right? They don't work with technology. They don't you know, live it and breathe it, but they also are kind of experiencing this sense of awe or amazement when using ChatGPT, and this might be one of the first times that they're experiencing something like that. Maybe
sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, maybe like I'm a little bit too young to remember what it was like sending my first email, but maybe to many people who had been, you know, working with snail mail for their entire lives, maybe they got a small sense of like that when they sent their first email, and, you know, their friend or whoever received that email. But I think ChatGPT is a little bit more powerful than that.
I completely resonate. It resonates with me strongly. And I think this is a moment to cherish, this moment of awe, and this moment of like, you know, that something that is like just in front of us happening, that, you know, will lead us to some unpredictable future. And I all my life, I kind of came to kind of, you know, adult life, post-internet, post-email. I started my first work. I already had my email account. You know, I do remember kind of pre-internet days, but generally technology has been part of my whole life, and it's just the first time I feel like, you know, there is just a new universe opening. And you compare it to internet. I even compare it to electricity, or even like just you know, imagine you seeing a magnet for the first time, or just like a device that can attract other device and just pull it, or communicate over the air, and you just like, you have no idea what to do with it, but it's just magic. It's just it's obviously going to change how we live.
Well, I'm happy that we're both on the same page with this kind of awe and inspiration for this technology. I think, you know, we'll get into it later on, but you know, every single day I'm looking at new AI tools, and it's just like this sense of awe just seems to keep growing, right? Like it's kind of stabilized a little bit, but it's like, oh, it can do this, and this is possible, and this is possible.
It's hard to follow. I mean, so many news, so many new tools. Of course, people are exploring this. I also think that this transition will be much faster than, you know, the internet adoption or electricity or whatever. It's literally probably going to happen in front of our eyes over the next couple of years, and we won't remember how it was before.
Yeah, that's true. Cool. Well, let's savor this moment. But let's also move into your article, right? So this has been viewed by I think it's now over 50,000 people, right? Or read by over 50,000
amazing
people.
I mean, I am not an internet influencer and nothing of that sort. I just put some thoughts that I felt were, you know, interesting, and it blew me away.
Yeah, but it clearly resonated with people, right? So this is something that organically drew a number of people to reading, myself included, and this is why we're meeting. Can you maybe explain a little bit of how this came about, right? So this is essentially a large project that you did for several months, and we'll get into the specifics. But how did your this project, if you will, initially come about?
You mean the how did I start the article, or how or the whole kind of
the
embracing
process.
the AI? Well, embracing the AI, I kind of felt it from the very beginning. Again, I just wanted to go as deep as I can, and use it, play with it, experiment, learn. Again, from that moment where I just and the friend that I was commenting on when our first interaction, I was just like, hey, but like, how do you do this? How I was asking, like, what do you do this? Like, what you can do with it? And he just something like, Michal, which is how we call me in Polish. Michal, I don't know. I feel like I'm a monkey with a razor with this, but like it feels good. So and this was the beginning, and I just like went on, and as I said, I just started applying it to many areas of my life, and I mean that exploration then turned into just a thought. Maybe I can do it for living. Maybe I can just also help people learn this, or help companies leverage this technology, and. The article itself, it was really an itch that I had to scratch. It was just like I remember thinking that like I feel like I'm a prompt engineering intern at the moment. I mean, because prompt engineering was like already kind of a emerging field, and people are and I've been using it so much that I even thought that maybe I should, like, as a joke, put it on my LinkedIn.
Right.
So my current position, prompt engineering intern, self-employed, whatever. And then I was just like, well, maybe I can just actually write something about it. And these two connected, and I ended up writing how I, like, my first 3 months as a prompt engineering intern, which is the title of the piece, I believe. And again, it was just like I felt that what I'm doing is well, maybe not special or unique, but it's just like I really dived deep into this. And talking to friends, and I noticed that not everybody is so open about this and so eager to experiment, and especially seeing the value that I was getting, it just felt like this might be something interesting to write about. Of course, and we can comment on that, I use GPT to help me with writing.
Right.
And this is another like unbelievable superpower. Like, you can write something without any anxiety about a like blank page. You can bounce the ideas. You can explore 5 different paths before you pick the path you want. I mean, it's just to me at least, it's like writing before ChatGPT, but like 100 times faster. So I wouldn't be able to do certain things and like play with some ideas on my own, but with that, it's just it's possible. It's like a superpower. Steve Jobs said that we have computers like bicycles for the mind. I mean, LLMs are like rockets or rocket engines for the mind. It's crazy. So I wrote it. It picked up. I mean, it took off. I think that's the right phrase. And in fact, this kind of pushed me to do this consulting business in the end. I mean, I just decided, well, why don't try it? I mean, I think I have things to offer. I think my also excitement and background skills and all that, it's kind of good mix for that venture, and definitely the interest and the connections. In fact, the clients that I made through the article pushed me over this idea.
Awesome. Yeah, that's the best kind of organic way to start something, right? There's already a draw. There's already some appreciation of maybe what you've written before you start. Well, why don't we dive into the article and this experience that you had, or this experiment that you did.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll have mentioned this in the pre-introduction, but as a prompt engineer intern, you essentially used ChatGPT in most, if not all, aspects of your life, right? To just experiment with, but find efficiencies, make things better, make things easier for you.
Mm-hmm.
Should we start on maybe your personal life a little bit, or do you want to jump into the professional endeavors that you did with?
We can start anywhere you want. I think that the one thing that really resonated with people is how I made Revolut pay me. What would like compensate me. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we can start with anything you find.
Okay, I have. So you've obviously. I mean, I've read the article. I have some notes, and you've also provided me with extra information. Here, it's you wrote down that the very first use was for your 10-year-old's birthday. So I want to start with the personal, and then maybe we can jump into the
I was actually just even not preparing, but just thinking about our conversation. I actually went down the history, the chat history, and by the way, the interface is crap. I hate using it, but well, that is what it is. So I went all the way, and the first conversation was give me some ideas for a 10-year-old, and I'm not going to bring it up now, but I think that it was like, hey, but actually it's a 10-year-old girl, she likes this, and just like some sort of back and forth. And I was with my daughter at my side, so we were just like playing with it together. I'm not surprised that my first use was that, because I would just probably come home and say like, hey, they just announced ChatGPT, let's play with it together. I had been playing with this playground before, so I kind of knew something, but the ideas for 10-year-old, not that we used any, because this was just like a test. The birthday is in December, so we still have time.
Okay. So you were well ahead of times. The reason I was asking about that was because my general sense, and the people that I'm talking to, maybe it's my bubble of people that I interact with, but my general sense is that most people are using ChatGPT for professional purposes, right? It's to get a little bit extra money, right? Like all these YouTube videos, for instance, it's like how to use ChatGPT to make $10,000 a month, right? I see that all the time. It's kind of annoying, but I see that all the time. But I don't think that many people think of ways of using it in their personal lives, which is what I'm assuming a lot of people resonated with your article with, right? So there's this birthday idea that you used. There was also maybe like skill development you had, I was actually using this when I came back to Canada. You wrote down like a virtual gym coach, right? So maybe you want to touch on that, because it seems like you used that.
So I, as I said, I really used it in all aspects of my life, private, professional. Probably some interesting private use cases would be journaling, would be gym coach, but that's not really deep. I mean, just like finding out some routine that works for you. Definitely like coaching in general, like I have been over the last couple of months, I have been thinking about career change and exploring different ideas, and just being able to bounce the ideas from this thing has been helpful. bedtime stories. It's actually another article I published recently with much more kind of technical details how I go about it. Maybe this is also something that might be interesting for your listeners. The bedtime stories for my kids. Yeah, I just use GPT either to create ideas or turn my rough ideas into something more polished. Or so yeah. I mean. I can go on and on. It's really, you know, but let's maybe do this. Let's you ask about gym coach. So this particular use case, I was just thinking about including my some stretching routine for some particular idea, but I didn't want to, you know, the typical when you go to online and just go for stretching routine, you have like these videos that are like, I know, 15 minutes or something, and you well, it's just like a piece of 15 minutes. Yeah, I didn't want that. I wanted to have something like maybe 4 times a day and just some more customization. Yeah, maybe I could have find it like not through GPT, but other way around. I just, you know, posed my constraints. I said like I want to have this no longer than 3 minutes each or 5 minutes each. Then cover this and this parts of my body and just develop this schedule. Yeah, and it did. It provide like 3 or 4 different routines that I can do on different times of the day. For me, the biggest challenge once it provided were the names in English. So, you know, hamstring something or whatever. Yeah, it's like some stuff that I'm not very familiar with. But yeah, that was not so difficult in the end. So this is a very simple use case. It doesn't really. It's just, you know, kind of question answer kind of thing. Similarly, I use it a lot for troubleshooting anything that I struggle with. I don't know, on my computer. I want to set something up or change something doesn't work. You know, Satya Nadella, if I'm pronouncing this name correctly, he said that with Copilot or with LLMs generally, any Windows user is a power user or a super user. It's really the case. I mean, this of course is not yet incorporated in the OS natively, but I mean, you can really solve complicated tasks in simple steps just because you know what you're doing, or you kind of know where you're heading, but you have no idea even how to search for it reasonably. And then this model is really effective at translating your rough idea into specific actions. So I use that. I use it for learning. Just sometimes just like structured learning. Like say, you know, I want to. I had earlier in this year planned to do some Amazon certificate, and I was just, you know, exploring some topics with GPT. In fact, I even asked the GPT to question me or like put tests together so that I can answer. In fact, also this might be interesting. In the end, I did not take the certification. This was associate EC2 architect or cloud architect, something like that. Okay. I decided not to do it because I felt I saw that every question that might come up, this model will just answer it better than I do. And I then had this idea of kind of you know, jobs that are going to be replaced, like you know, and anything that is just about being an interface between a question of your client and the general knowledge that we accumulated as a society. It's a job at risk. You know, we can explore it more, but so this was kind of my insight when I was thinking and preparing for this exam, that well, actually, what's the point of preparing of the exam if this is just giving me all the answers? And I might as well not be there then. But then also learning, this was more structured learning, but sometimes and this is also something I covered in the article, you know, you just want to explore some, I don't know, physics idea or some philosophical idea. You know, I might be reading something about Buddhism philosophy and something that's and you can actually talk to this model, or even like set it up in a way that the model is the kind of your coach / monk / philosopher who can explore different things with you, but will never get annoyed by any stupid question you ask. Yeah. And, maybe it's just me. I just have a very kind of conversational way of thinking. And maybe this is part of the, but like one of the reasons that it really works for me. I just talk a lot about in my head to myself, and I also this kind of conversation and developing ideas through bouncing them with something that's not necessarily another person, but kind of a I don't know how to put
virtual
it, like
assistant
of sorts, like 1 billion people, and at the same time, like something like an extension of me. It just feels like a superpower, as I said. And private, professional. I really find it very useful. Again, I can go on like journaling, exploring like some creative ideas. People just should, try this and think what works for them. And probably, the key milestone for me was when I didn't think about it as an external tool that I can bring in and just like apply. I really kind of like embraced it in a way that, it was very natural to me. Like, okay, so I will just like have a conversation with GPT about this, or try some ideas about whatever, about some ideas. And it's been great. It's been. I feel like I have a superpower.
Yeah. I think this is also maybe one of the reasons that I was initially attracted to the article that you wrote, and maybe so many other people were as well. Is that, I think a lot of people are aware of how astronomical the potential of this tool actually is, but you're somebody that's already used it for several months, right? At a more than just once a day, right? You were using it several times a day in certain instances. So it's become, I'm struggling to find the best word, but you were connected to it, or you were linked to it, or it became a part of not yourself, but your way of living, if you will. And I think that is really interesting for people to think about, because for us that are in the world of technology, working in the world of technology, we understand that this is how it's going to happen, right? This is what's going to happen to a large proportion of the population. So to kind of get an insight into somebody who's already there, I think was quite interesting for me anyways, but I'm sure it was very interesting for other people. I do want to go back to one of the things that you mentioned, and this is typically not the things that are really talked about on the podcast too much. And it was about the bedtime story. So maybe I'll lose a couple people that are listening, but I think it's quite interesting. And so I've written an article on the kind of future impacts of LLMs and video generation, right? Text to video generation on Hollywood and storytelling in general. But this is, 5-10 years out. I think it's going to be massively disruptful. But I'm curious how you use it, because you mentioned a little bit when you mentioned it about how it was able to generate other formats for you to speak to your children in these bedtime stories, right? So maybe I think you have 2 children, right? And one's obviously a little bit younger, so you were able to like modify the stories a little bit to maybe you can just touch on that.
So the first thing is that I actually last week I published an article on that, and if anybody's interested, there actually I share my prompts, my way of like working with this thing, so that I can give you some highlights here. And maybe this comes down to this this thing I said earlier, that I think it's a bicycle for my thinking. Yeah, it's not like something that I can like a tool. It's really an extension of my thinking process. So I like telling stories to my children. I've said like hundreds of bedtime stories to my children, and some of them are good, some of them are bad, and I know kind of I know my process behind it. And sometimes I'm tired, sometimes it's just not the I'm not in the mood they want, but I'm not in the mood, and it's kind of doesn't. And this extension of my thinking just feels like those gaps, yeah. And you know, you can have an idea, then you can throw this idea into GPT, and then it will just help you maybe polish it a little bit. My idea that I actually explored with GPT was that I wanted to have a story that explores this concept of there are 4 fundamental forces in the universe. Yeah, and this is actually also in the article that I shared. So okay, I have some basic knowledge about physics, but I mean, I'm not going to. I could probably after 4 hours write a story that would maybe have some, you know, this ideas embedded in it, and like would be entertaining for my kids. But why, if I can just ask GPT and you know, just give the constraints? So as you said, I have 2 daughters. You know, I can even say, well, but actually the stories that I give, I tell usually are about 2 girls. They have their names. They have like, there is structure to it. Yeah, and again, this is something that I explore in depth in my last article. And the good thing is that you don't need to just go to GPT and say, hey, give me a bedtime story. Or, hey, give me a bedtime story for my kids. You can be very specific. You can tell how to start. You can say that, hey, I wanted to have a moral. You can tell that, hey, I want this story to be about 4 fundamental forces of the universe and about 2 girls, and you know, make sure that you include cats there, and just don't overcomplicate your phrases too much, because when I talk to my kids, I don't overcomplicate it. Yeah, I mean, and then really, I think this 4 fundamental forces. Well, the idea was that my idea was this was part of the prompt, that they are visiting 4 different planets. They are traveling through space. They are visiting 4 different planets, and just fill in the gaps, please, GPT. And then it just did, and you know, including names of those planets that were connected to different forces, and again, it's just I could probably do all this myself. Yeah, it would be worse, and it would take much more time. So this is this is the pattern that I'm discovering over and over. Yeah, I mean, of course, you know, sometimes I just don't want to have GPT content. Yeah, sometimes I like when I'm journaling, I'm not going to ask GPT to produce my journaling entry. Yeah, but then you know, getting feedback on my journaling entry is an interesting experience. And if I don't know if you're journaling yourself, if not, then I actually, if you do that, I this is an idea, write a piece just like as if you would, and then you know, throw it at GPT and say, hey, what do you think about this journaling piece? Yeah, you know, maybe it will tell you, well, I particularly like the way you structure your thought and your explorative ideas, or maybe but this happens to me. Sometimes it happens. What it happens is, well, maybe you should give more background about the emotions you felt, because my journals are very kind of like, you know, matter of fact. This is a point that I can take and maybe learn, or maybe not. Another, of course, interesting topic when you ask GPT to create content for you is how to maintain authentic style, and how to be, you know, make sure that this is actually you talking, not AI talking. And I think we all now realize the amount of AI generated content on LinkedIn or other media is just there, and it's just like this generic stuff. And I think this is just not using it right. It's like people, of course, this doesn't have any value. Of course, this is like boring. Of course, people will get fed up. But if you use it right and make it sound, as in, it's not like make it sound. Again, I can write all this myself, but it will just take me 10 times more time. And with GPT, it just feels easier. It feels more fun. So yeah, coming back to the bedtime stories, you know, sometimes I just don't want it to be. I wanted to write it, but maybe and I would just have all the details of the story, including like, you know, what the characters, what happens, very detailed. But then it's yet a draft. It's a draft, yeah. So I can either go and just go with the flow, and my kids probably wouldn't mind it, because this is what normally happens. I mean, I don't write those stories before. I just run, you know, the tape on my mind, and but sometimes but sometimes it's another experience for them, to listen something that was AI generated. They of course notice that it's not me. They have fun about it. I mean, they laugh about it, and they usually enjoy the story anyway.
Okay, that's an interesting point that you mentioned. So part of the reason that I asked you the question about the bedtime stories is I think a lot of people who are already starting to see some AI generated content, whether they're stories, images, etc. There's been some critique of it being a little bit fake or not as genuine, or there's this hesitancy to accept it. Mm-hmm. So if your daughters are aware that this is a ChatGPT inspired or framed, formatted story, has there been any difference in the way that they receive the stories? And has there been any, I think this is the main question, has there been any sensation or feeling from you that you're essentially cheating, if you will, when you're giving these stories to your daughters? Not to make it too personal, but I think it touches on a larger
I mean,
point.
it's a good question, and it touches on this authenticity
Yes.
kind of topic. And again, we are flooded with content that's not authentic, that's not relevant, that's just generic. And again, I just think this is an extension of my brain. I mean, I just come to them and I say, hey, you know what? I just had this idea about 4 different fundamental forces. Let's see what GPT is going to tell us about. Mm-hmm. And we just take this opportunity to explore together. And again, I don't see GPT as just replacing me as the dad telling the stories, because this is something I just enjoy. I want to do it. I want to also, and the struggle of coming up with idea and connecting the dots, or even telling the story as you tell the story. This is also an experience worth having. At least for me, I enjoyed. So just again, telling the story which is not scripted in any way, just go with the flow. The GPT generated story is yet another thing we can do together, if you know what I mean, as in with my kids. So it's just added to my portfolio of options, and it's, well, or maybe not even one, but 5 different new cards, let's say, and it's great. They see this as a tool. They see this as something that we can use together and play with it. Whether I'm worried that in a day where I'm very tired and I would normally maybe even say, you know what, let's just keep it for today. I can't really think of anything. Whether I'm worried that at that particular day I can now go to GPT and just again, feed it with some idea that I had that's completely not polished, but will be something that I might have, explored myself, and then just have it. It's good. It's just I think, again, it's just an option to have. I wanted to comment, because again, my kids are using it. I mean, of course, again, this is a difficult topic, how to make it right, how to as a parent, how to supervise it, how to explore it together. But they play with it sometimes. Not that they are particularly interested. I mean, they still probably just prefer playing Animal Crossing on Nintendo rather than using GPT. Sure. But I remember one day my younger one, 6-year-old, came to me and said, that, because we also have Alexa. Alexa, that's just they used for timers, or maybe playing some games together, maybe playing some music. And she goes, Dad, do you think Alexa will ever be as smart as GPT? And they realize the potential there, and I think for them it will be very natural. They're part of their environment, just a machine that you can talk to, or it's not even maybe even considered an external entity. I mean, now we're going into kind of deep philosophical thing, but I just think that this might be just extension of your brain. You don't see your own writing. If I'm right now writing my notes, I don't see this writing as something external. It's my writing. Yeah. So again, this is not a polished thought. It just occurred to me, but I see this as an extension of our thinking rather than something that is external. Yeah.
Yeah.
But of course, threat, alignment, all the challenges are there, as with any tech. It's just, to me, it's unbelievable, the potential and what it's going to happen, what it's going to cause, and what we will experience over the next couple of years.
Yeah. Well, I definitely mirror those sentiments. The reason that I asked that question with the bedtime stories is I think that this is a trend that I keep seeing, like looking at historical acceptance and adoption of other technologies as well, right? Mm-hmm. The one thing that I actually learned about within the last year or so was that there was a lot of pushback when books first started to come out. Yeah. People were saying, or societies were saying, well, this is going to rot the brains of our population. People are not going to be able to think anymore because they're just going to outsource all of the thinking to the books, and it's just going to be memorization, and there's going to not be any kind of creative thought anymore. I generally think that this is what happens when any new, substantive technology comes about, is that there's a lot of pushback. Sometimes it's true, right? Like for social media, for instance, I think that the pushback is relevant, but when there's pushback, there's not necessarily the understanding or the concept that, well, this technology is just going to become, as you keep saying, an extension of us, especially if it's as powerful as ChatGPT or the pen or the book, etc. So I think it's a really interesting idea, and I think that the bedtime stories is such a clear example of something that is maybe precious to people, right? And this thought of cheapening or diluting that experience might be the
you
first.
Could go and buy a bedtime story book. Sorry to interrupt, but it's kind of like, again, we already have tools that we can use.
Yes,
and I'm talking as a person who enjoys telling them, thinking about them, creating them, even with effort. But sometimes it's just it's good to have another option.
Yeah, and that was going to be my final point. My thinking is that it's actually going to be enriching the experience that you have, right? So you said you're too tired, so instead of not having a story, well, now you have a story, so you're able to interact with your daughters. You're also able to generate better content with the 4 planets and the 4 fundamental laws of physics. You're able to not only have a better story, a more engaging story, but they're able to learn something from there. Whereas maybe previously, even if you had worked for 4 hours, it might not be to that level. So I think that
I never did. Yeah. I don't know how that came. How just to make sure. I'm not the kind of person who would work for hours on the bed. But I want to make one. I want to make a comment on one thing you mentioned about. How to well, I don't know exactly what you said, but I want to comment on the like how we are going, how we need to adapt, how we need to kind of see. I mean, obviously, you started with this memorization versus writing. This was the point I was trying to make. Of course, we there were, when there was no books or writing, probably there were people who were being paid for memorizing stuff.
Yes.
Because I mean, you need to memorize stuff, so you have you can extract value of this kind of relationship. And of course, now we have other kind of relationships and other sources of value, which are going to be changed, content writing, or we can go on, and that includes what skills we want to teach to our kids. For example, I mean, many people complain now, well, those kids now just are writing essays, and they're all GPT generated essays, and well, I mean, if what you are doing right now is evaluating a person, like a teenager or whatever, on a somewhat generic essay that they are writing, and the stuff that you're looking on is, well, grammar is okay, spelling is okay, it has the beginning, the middle, and the end, and it's okay, and that's it. Maybe there is not so much value being replaced anyway. But now with GPT, maybe you can actually help them improve their thinking and evaluate their thinking. I mean, my idea, or one idea, would be replace essay writing with showing the interaction with GPT about certain topics. Yeah, I mean, we are just talking about GPT all the time, but of course this includes all other LLMs. They are just going to become more and more powerful. And again, the progress here is unbelievable. Meta just announced a new open source huge model. So this of course affects, where we see value, how we want to interact with each other, even, doing business. As I said before, people would make business out of being good memory machines. And also what we want, how we want to organize ourselves, and what skills we want to use, we want to teach our children. I think that really what it is going to remove is this kind of redundant, not very pleasant, not very creative knowledge work, and leave us with stuff that is more, again, I'm simplifying, of course, but generally leave us with stuff that's more pleasant to work on. At least that's my experience. Again, the blank slate anxiety, or the creative process anxiety, is no longer something that I experience that much, and I just have more joy in writing. Right? I mean, it's just. We can explore this further as a topic, how to make sure that this writing is my writing rather than any other like any AI writing. But I definitely don't feel that I'm cheating. I think that this is hard work that it's maybe even more intense in a way, because you're just exploring many different avenues now that you previously would be not so willing to explore, and maybe you would be just more linear in your creative process. But it's still a creative process. It's still work. So
well, maybe my final thought on this specific subject, and this is because it's come up on many other podcasts before, and of course in discussions with people outside of the podcast, is that I think there's a general sense of anxiety of maybe older generations that have used specific skills throughout their lives that have enabled them to survive throughout life or to be successful. And they see a new technology coming about that's going to make those skills redundant or obsolete. But what is typically left out or forgotten or not seen is that there's a new set of skills that are coming up that are going to be replacing these old set of skills that, as you were saying, are generally speaking at a higher cognitive level, right? So people that are digitally native, they might have, reduced conversational abilities, but they're able to think in, maybe not higher dimensions, but in a more multi-layered aspect, because they're dealing with multiple windows every single day, maybe different desktops, multiple screens, all these sorts of things. So I think that this apprehension that is constantly being experienced by a society when a new, especially a large-scale technology comes about, I think it has much more to do with them reflecting on how they've gone through life, how they've experienced life, and the fear that the new generation is going to be missing out on those skills that they found valuable, but not necessarily understanding that new sets of skills will be more valuable to the newer generation. This is something that just keeps coming up, and I think for me it's just such an interesting idea to think about whenever new technology comes about.
But it is a valid point. I mean, there is a shift that's going to happen. I mean, I just touched a little bit about it, about talking about how we extract value and how we organize ourselves doing business. I mean, again, this is partly why I just decided to do this consulting business. I just think that there will be a lot of companies need help to figure this out, need help with integrating this technology in their current process and all that. But there is, of course, a kind of macro shift, as you said. People losing jobs, or people looking for new jobs. But that's nothing new. I mean, that's something that we have been experiencing. Maybe, again, this is going to be faster than usual, but maybe that being faster kind of makes it like the people who are maybe, I mean, I'm 43, and I don't find myself versus this tech as particularly in a particularly disadvantageous position. I'm not sure my English is corrected here, but I hope I'm making my point. Yeah, it's just like, in fact, we didn't comment that I'm in Warsaw, I'm in Poland. Poland is also not the center of the world. I mean, US is the center of the world, but I also don't feel like I have such a disadvantage versus anybody in San Francisco. Okay, maybe Silicon Valley, yes, but like in a way, everybody is as surprised by this as I am, and trying to figuring out, trying to think what works, what doesn't. So just commenting on that point of people who had their experience versus people who didn't have their life experiences, the younger versus older. I think that because this transition will probably happen very fast and it's accelerating in front of us, which probably also has its own risk. This is kind of a democratizing trend that anybody just standing against this has really opportunity to just become why don't just I like what I did? Yeah, I mean, like, I can just I might as well worry, or I might explore this. There is a very interesting piece by Ben Evans. He published it, I think, 2 weeks ago or something, about this shifts in labor, with some nice examples, historical examples. Again, the main takeaway for me is that this is nothing new. And generally, and you ask anybody now whether they want to live today or in, I don't know, mid-15th century, you want to live today because, the technology enables everybody to have better lives. And that probably also, that includes this particular technology.
I fully agree. Let's shift then. We keep coming up to like the professional and the business aspect. So you also used ChatGPT extensively for your career shift. I think there was also quite a bit of CV or cover letter writing that helped you spend significantly less time looking for jobs. Can you touch on that? And I think we'll
Although I must say that I actually I would even put this on the personal bucket rather than professional bucket, because those are things that I do maybe on to I don't know, as you said, like explore career options or develop my professional life, but it's still me doing this. So and there is another big area that I don't know if we'll have time to cover, how companies want to leverage this technology and what needs to happen, what kind of advance, whether it's already there, this technology, whether it needs to develop, what are low-hanging fruit versus not. And this is another exciting kind of area. So coming back to your question, yes, I used it. Just as I use it for journaling, as I use it for bedtime stories, I use it for things like preparing for my job interviews. Again, I've been on like exploration over the last couple of months, and this has been very useful. And we can go into some details. I've used it for preparing presentation. I've used it for even crafting the cover letters, and this is another example I said I covered in the article. I hate cover letters. I don't remember. I read one or two in my life on the recruiting site. But I don't see that they really add value, and there are still companies which expect that. I think LLMs will basically make them realize that they are not extracting anything reasonable from them. And I kind of use that loophole because this is still early. They don't know, and I know. So I was just, and again, just sharing some like techniques. What I was doing is, just pull my CV, throw it into GPT, ask it to summarize it. Of course, the CV itself, on another session, it helped me to craft it in a way that's better than it used to be. But let's start with the CV, and then I throw a description of a job. And I also, what I would do typically is that I had some cover letter that I either wrote, or maybe it was before crafted by GPT, just something that I like. And again, I very often when crafting content with GPT, I end up with something like, okay, this is the version that resonates with me, or like, but it might not be the version that resonates with you because it's less, and then it will say, yeah, okay, it's a good version. So like, it's always like you need to navigate this in a way. But so 3 things: CV, the job description, and some cover letter that I feel like I has my style and I resonates with me. And then 7 minutes later you're done. And it's I mean, no, at the same time, not that I had some particular success with those cover letters because I ended up independent consultant. I did have some no, I'm joking. They did call me back, those companies, and it's like when you read it. In fact, again, this is a letter that I would want to write myself. Yes. It's not a general cover letter that I would download from the internet. It's a letter that uses phrases that I would use, and this is also amazing about this kind of chat-like, conversation-like mode that GPT operates in. This that you can just like again bounce ideas. It comes back to you. There are good ideas, bad ideas. If there are bad ideas, you can correct them, or like on another professional example, quite funny, is writing LinkedIn posts. Like just short messages or whatever. Yeah, just this kind of. And again, for a person who is not a native English speaker and some vocabulary is just out of my standard brain, and that is again the brain that kind of picks this vocabulary, but sometimes it picks a vocabulary that I just find strange and like maybe even annoying. But what I find particularly annoying, how excited, like artificially excited GPT gets when you asked it to publish a LinkedIn post. So I don't know if you tried it yourself. I tried many times, and whenever there is a LinkedIn mentioned in my prompt, the result, even if I feed it with the version that's mine, and if I even ask, please try to like imitate the style or like keep my style, it ends up with something that's just like this very exciting, very generic, and again, when you know how these machines work, you know how to navigate this, and you know how to kind of maybe use another prompt, or maybe if my post on LinkedIn is actually more like post on Facebook or Twitter, let's just call it post on Twitter. Yeah, again, we are kind of trying to figure out what's authentic, what's not authentic. Another example would be this writing PowerPoint presentations. I mean, I can go on and on. I don't know if you find anything particularly interesting. I'm just rambling most of the time. So
I think it's a little bit difficult as well, because I mean, I've also used ChatGPT quite a bit. So maybe not for LinkedIn, but certainly for other social media, specifically for the podcast. So I do understand the kind of troubles or issues that you have with it in that sense too. And my first experience with ChatGPT, or the first one that I remember anyways, was actually creating a cover letter for a job interview, for a job posting, and it was actually quite an extensive one. I think it was actually for NATO, and it would have taken me like a couple days to do all the research. Like they wanted like pages of responses, and it took me 2 hours. Right. So I think one of the things, and this is why I think I started the interview mentioning this, is that the tremendous efficiency gains that you get from using ChatGPT, even if you're somebody listening and you want to apply to different jobs, maybe they have some sort of AI detector out there now, but it can be a tremendous opportunity to save so many hours on something that is really time consuming, right? They say,
I'm interrupting you, but like I just want to also throw this idea that you said they might have an AI detector. I just think that whoever tries to detect AI, or whoever tries to go through the interview process with this idea that, hey, I'm just going to sneak under the AI detector and they won't notice, this is just a wrong mindset on both sides. I mean, I just see this as an extension of my own thinking. Like if you did something for NATO that you would do for, I mean, it was still your content. It was still like your work. It was still just stuff that, and it just also can help you even during the interview process. And I can give you 2 examples.
Yeah, please.
So interview process is a conversation. Like there is, of course, you can also read a lot about questions online, like how to prep. But again, having more specific conversation and prep work for the interview with GPT based on your CV and based on the job description or job posting is definitely something that helped me, and helped me to prepare. But in 2 particular examples that I wanted to share is that it also helped me to frame my how to put it, like let's say you want to talk about some experiences you have, like some achievements you had, and I'm as you can see, I'm generally kind of my mind is all over. Like I can really talk and like connect, like dots are just coming from my head.
I understand.
For better or worse. And this is not the best approach for I mean generally for a formal job interview. So what I did what I did with GPT is that, for example, I want to tell something about some particular achievement, say something about my particular achievement or story, and then for me it's a story. This is something I talk about with my friends. But what I tell GPT, okay, hey, this is my story, and I wrote like, I don't know, 3 paragraphs about it, and then I say, please turn it into a star structure. So a star structure is something that you actually come across when you prepare for job interviews. It's like situation, task,
action, result,
and result, something like that. I mean that, and it's just like, so I don't need to really bend my head, my own kind of narrative story like thinking into the star model. I can just throw the story at the and again, you just write it. You write like you would write a diary, and then it gives you this kind of stuff that you can maybe memorize, or maybe just like have in mind like 3 or 4, and that's at least it was helpful for me. Another thing that was helpful for me is that I wanted to I've been leader most of my life, and I actually enjoy it. I have a lot of kind of mental models that I use for management, and like when I think about management situations, how to decompose it. But these are just things that I grew organically, and sometimes when there is a stressful situation like job interview, not everything comes to your mind. It's like again, a stressful situation. So what I asked GPT once, and this indeed helped me as well during one of the interviews, is that I said, okay, so these are the things that I find important when managing people, let's say, and whatever, it can be like communication or alignment, or like some big concepts, and I asked GPT, please help me to memorize all those by giving me like a mental abbreviation, kind of this, McKinsey model, and it came up with a very decent name, like again, something that maybe I would create myself, but probably I would never think about it that much. I would end up just, maybe missing 1 or 2 in a stressful situation that to be just okay, life. And I had a name, and the name itself was actually clear. It's like that, CLER. So very easy to remember. And then it just went like communication, learning, empowerment. And these are the concepts that I, again, deeply find very important as a leader. And it was just a way to, not to worry about memorizing this stuff. You can, and probably because of how the model works and because how easy it connects different things, when you feed it, just like a story, hey, this is what's important for me. Throw me an idea for a mental shortcut that it will be easy to remember. It's usually will get it right. You don't need to go to McKinsey to
Yeah. This is such an interesting idea. Like to me, it really sounds like, okay, you clearly use ChatGPT correctly to prepare for these job interviews. And I'm just thinking now, give it we'll give it 6 more months, right? And those people that are using ChatGPT like this will have such a step up against the competition that aren't, right? So you can either go to maybe not an Ivy League school, but you can go to a pretty good school and you can get taught all these sorts of ways to apply and prepare for job interviews, or you can just skip all that and use ChatGPT for a couple hours, and it can prepare you to the same level. And I think it's so one, it's gonna drastically increase the global competition for jobs, right? So you're not necessarily going to have to apply or find the best candidate that's near you. Like other people around the world will be able to do that. As I said before, it's going to make those people that use this technology superpowered compared to the competition.
Yeah. So I want to make 2 points. Definitely, I think that this is the point about the democratization of I don't know even how to call it. Yeah, just like this, like mental resources or something. I mean, of course, if you are like super rich, you can hire, I don't know, 10 assistants. They will ghostwrite your autobiography, and you will pretend, and everybody will believe that you are such an important person because you wrote an autobiography. Come on. I mean, that's something that this person who is super rich, I feel, doesn't have an advantage anymore. I mean, as you said, I'm not an Ivy League person. I didn't have my parents didn't have funds to send me to any school in the US. But I as I said earlier, I feel like this is something that suddenly just gives me access to something that I was not able to access. But another thing I wanted to comment on is and coming back to this thought that we had earlier, what has value versus what doesn't have value. Yeah. I mean, imagine that you are hiring somebody and you are hiring a leader, and you're saying, well, this person needs to be creative. This person needs to know a lot about Amazon EC2 because, I mean, I don't know, let's say we are hiring a CTO, and that person needs to be very good at writing corporate emails. And this is your current job description. I mean, of course, those skills are no longer relevant as kind of, protein meat brain skills, so to speak. I think that this will also affect what we are looking for, where we see the value and where we see the contribution. I think, for example, now, if I were to hire a leader, I mean, I'm not saying that creativity or technical expertise is no longer relevant, but I would definitely optimize for charisma, communication, just being able to energize people, because with GPT or tools like GPT, you definitely can fill many gaps, but not the charisma gap. Or not the hey, I'm excited about this, or hey, let's do it together gap. So I think it's again very I find it very exciting, very, very interesting to just observe how this changes. Again, this is why I decided to be independent and just not because I actually had, and this is another thing that I actually use GPT for, how to make decisions about job rejections. So I had been offered some jobs, and they were good offers, and I just didn't know what to do, and I again did some coaching with GPT about this, but I just ultimately decided that I want to be close to this revolution. I want to be really hands-on. I want to talk to clients, help them understand, have the leverage, but on the other hand, I want to commit to open source. I want to learn these tools on my own, and because I think that this is how I, in particular myself, but like anybody, can really extract value, just like going end to end. And I happen to have experience that allows me to do that. That's also pretty unique, I guess. And it's just very exciting time to be. And again, figuring out what has value, how to structure it, what to sell, what won't sell is interesting.
And so, I mean, we're both kind of in the similar situation that we're both starting these startups, these consultancies. I think that ChatGPT has been absolutely invaluable for me to support like initial discussions with clients, or how to propose a better offer, how to structure meetings with potential clients for the first time, right? Like all these sorts of things. One of the so I've interviewed a couple of futurists on the podcast before, and touching on one of the things that you were saying, like one of the things that we're going to be seeing is a lot of like independent workers come out from this AI revolution, but also through the support of many other technologies. And the other thing is kind of a full circle from people that are very experienced with technologies and maybe don't have so many human skills to people that are so supported by technology that the things that are going to be the most important are the human skills. It might still take another decade or so, but one of the best examples are doctors, right? So all the amazing powers of diagnosing patients is most probably some of the leading futurists and technologists out there are saying is that AI will be able to do that within a decade or 2 decades or so. So what will doctors need to do? Well, they're not going to have to go through however 20 years of medical school, like almost a lifetime of medical school, but they're going to have to supplement that with significant amounts of human to human interaction. How do you have discourses, right? They might turn into not specifically nurses, but they're going to have that human connection in order to talk to their patients at a much more personal level. And I think that this is going to happen with many different fields, but of course, doctors is kind of the prime example that happens, or that's brought up all the time.
Yeah, and you talked about this earlier, that some jobs will be removed and some new opportunities will be created, and this is exactly the case. I mean, there will be professions, even the same professions, that some things that they are currently important for those professions will no longer be relevant. I also had a thought recently. Some family member is struggling with some diagnosis. I mean, it's not even, I mean, they are struggling, but they're actually getting a diagnosis. And, there is like maybe 2 or 3 like super knowledgeable doctors in Poland in this particular field, and through some friends they got access. And this doctor, my wife of my brother was telling me that that so we managed to access this doctor, but it was just like 8 minutes or like 4 minutes. He was going from one operation to another operation, and I was not even there, and he gave this opinion, but I don't know about this opinion. And she was kind of worried, of course, about the family member. And again, I was listening to her, and of course we were thinking like what we should do, kind of figuring out. But at the same time, I was just thinking like, there is no way this is going to happen in 5 years' time. No way. There won't be any doctor who will feel so important, just knowledge. Like he was just looking at the picture, and he just briefly looked at the picture and gave one sentence, and then this caused my wife of my brother to worry and think, and etc. Many people's like the quality of many people's like her, like me, will be much improved because of this tech. And again, I know that I'm overly positive and optimistic. I also want to recognize that there are challenges, and it's not like I don't see them. But I am on the glass half full side, and I just have faith in humanity, I guess. That we all the challenges that come with it, we are just going to figure them out, and the benefits are just there, like obviously. So why not just take them?
Run with it. Yeah. I mean, we could spend an entire hour just talking about the challenges and the worries, right? The civilization ending possibilities with AI. I think that's been in the news so much that I mean, it doesn't necessarily need to be talked about for another hour. How about we switch a little bit towards the financial aspect or the financial benefits that you experienced, right? So you mentioned earlier on in the conversation about, I think it was Revolut, and that you were able to get 500 euros back. So I think that this was also a part in the article that I was thinking, oh yeah, like that makes total sense for all the times that I've had to deal with, bureaucracies or corporations, stealing a subscription here when it's like automatically taken off of my Visa card. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that, because I think that's quite interesting and relevant for anybody listening.
And actually, many people said that it didn't occur to them that this might be a way to use it. And again, this is just like it shows what happens when you just embrace it and use it. Before I talk about Revolut, I just want to make a comment that I think, I'm still net negative on my AI spending, because I'm buying now everything there is, ChatGPT, Midjourney, this, that.
Me too.
I'm paying for some VPN because some stuff is only in US. So that's also.
I recommend Proton VPN that works for me. It's a free one, so I can connect to Bard, because Bard is not available in Canada yet.
I think Bard is actually now available in Europe, unlike Claude 2.
Yes.
So I mean, you just want to
try them all.
Try them all. Yeah. And by the way, generally, I think the GPT is still the best solution. I haven't played with the latest Meta model, but I actually am quite happy with GPT. So the story about Revolut. There is a bigger background. Around a year and a half ago, Revolut blocked my account, blocked my wife's account, and blocked some family member account. They just thought that we were doing some shady things. And the only thing that we were doing is that we were literally just sitting at the same table, and we were just doing some transfers, because my wife is actually from UK. We wanted to have some gift from the UK, and it had to go through her, because of tax reasons. Nothing illegal or anything. And so it all happened very fast, and that it triggered some, I don't know, money laundering or whatever policy. And they closed our accounts with like a month's notice, and all three. So again, it was like a huge impact. Like, I had been a Revolut user for ages before. And so I tried to complain, like I said, why I didn't do anything wrong, blah, blah, blah. They just said, no, we can't give you any excuse. They basically told me to fuck off. Sorry, my French.
It's fine.
Once in a podcast is enough. And I forgot about it. I mean, they closed the account. I just, found my way. I mean, again, I was a user, but then I had to figure out how to replace it with other services. So fast forward a year or a year and a half, I have a GPT Plus subscription, and I have GPT-4 at my disposal. And it's just, I just said, maybe I'll come back. I think I don't know why I was actually thinking about it. Maybe I thought that a year is coming to the end, and maybe they will somehow revisit. I don't know. It triggered something. Yeah. Okay. So I wrote a complaint on their official kind of complaint form, and saying that this happened a year ago, blah blah blah, and they replied. And they replied, they usually, and the complaint itself, I think I maybe did it myself, but maybe not. Maybe I just filled some details with GPT. The point is that they replied. Then, okay, I will fast forward because this is not really relevant. I mean, I had to write another complaint to a Bank of Lithuania. This is what they told me. Which this whole complaint was written by GPT based on my story. Again, I mean, this is a story that I've been telling to my friends about how Revolut closed my account. Like, GPT, this is what happened in my life. Sure. Please fill in this form for me, which has costs of whatever, liabilities of I don't know this language. Yeah, it's this was a form that I had to fill in to the Bank of Lithuania. Revolut is kind of licensed, I think, in Europe under this bank. So this was like a mediator of sorts. But that itself, I think, was like I mean, they would look at it anyway if I had. If I just wrote something, maybe it added some ideas that I said that I had some opportunity costs or like this fancy language, like customer rights, whatever. Like again, I don't want to now remember about it. They were just like written in a maybe not very legalese, but like somehow serious way, in that form. Yeah. But I think the form itself and the Bank Lithuania would trigger this procedure anyway. But then once the procedure was triggered, then I received an email. So again, I complained about that they unlawfully closed the account to Bank of Lithuania. The Bank of Lithuania told them that we are starting this investigation. You need to give us some documents, blah, blah, blah. And maybe they did some investigation on their side and they said, well, actually, this guy didn't do anything wrong. So we are going to lose this. And maybe this Bank of Lithuania is going to whatever, tell us to pay him something, and like, why don't we just close this case? And they wrote me an email. And this email was a legalese email. Yeah, and this was like, given the circumstances and understanding your clock, blah, 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 we hereby give you your account back, and we give you some compensation of, was it 50 euros or 20 euros? Something like
negligible. That. Yeah.
No, not negligible, but like, your appetite grows as you eat, as we say in Poland. So, and that, I think that the only reason I just actually got triggered into trying this idea was that legalese of that particular email. Just, there was a guy, I'm not going to call his name, but there was a guy, he like wrote a very formal email. So of course I went with my tool, pasted the whole email. I think also I pasted the whole my story, my background, like why I think this is important, what were my opportunity costs, how I consulted a lawyer to explore my options, which I did not. Sorry, I mean, okay, that's a lie, but I guess a justifiable lie. And all that was put into a very legalese kind of professionally sounding email. I don't remember if I did much editing on it. But the key point here was that I increased the compensation to 500 euros. Because, I thought they were probably paying this person 500 per hour or maybe something like that. I mean, 50 euros didn't sound like a good compensation for my 12 months of Revolut hiatus, if I can say so. And again, just why not? And then he, maybe I even said not only 500, but I said that I want 12 months of some super premium subscription of theirs. Sure. Like just to throw it there, just like, why not? And one thing that he replied very quickly without the answer, but one thing that was clear from the conversation his answer was that he, I think, kind of realized that he has a partner at his level with this kind of language. Right. And there was an equal. Yeah. I mean, again, I don't want to psychoanalyze the person, but I was surprised that maybe he's just a very professional person and he wanted to, just give me the best possible customer service. I mean, Revolut, I guess, is generally good at this, except my case. But he replied that, I'm going to look into this, and this was also in legalese. And to that I replied thank you very much, again with this kind of styled GPT, and if actually I don't even know if I have this in my history right now. I was planning to write this as a blog, but I don't think I have, well, for one reason or another, I couldn't find it. So those prompts are no longer there, but well, I can actually look in my emails because the emails are there. So maybe I will write this blog post.
Yeah,
so
I think
basically,
it's an interesting
one. I replied, and then after 2 days he replies, granted, no premium super subscription, but okay, fine. And even this last emails, like last couple of emails that were written in this particular style, I still felt this bond on his side. Like he was really talking to somebody that, you know, he respects, and it's kind of weird in a way. I mean, that again, this gave me this kind of connection, and I don't know if I abuse them or not. I mean, I think that 500, given the cost of not having Revolut by their mistake, is actually not that. I mean, it's a good compensation. It's definitely, I would call it. It's more like 550.
fair compensation. Yeah.
It's fair compensation. Maybe 5,000 would be pushing it too much, but who knows? With my legalese, maybe even 5,000 would be possible.
Well, let's ignore the moral quandaries of this issue. I think there's two things that I want to dive a little bit deeper into. The first is, with the advent of social media, for instance, it was kind of the first time that you had anonymous people speaking to other anonymous people. And I think there for sure has been a number of studies on how people speak to other people differently when it's anonymous. Right. So there's very little respect for other people. There's willingness to use stronger language, to use bad language to other people that you don't know online, because you don't see their see their face, you don't see their response, etc. So using that as a kind of an idea, was your ability to speak or to respond to Revolut through using ChatGPT reducing your kind of emotional weight or connection to this response? Because for me, like I'm currently dealing with a landlord issue, withholding of damage deposit, and I'm using ChatGPT to do a lot of these kind of interactions. And I feel like the first couple times that I responded, it was all me. Like the emotional weight was there. I was like, spending a lot of time writing these responses. But when I was starting to use ChatGPT, it kind of lightened that load substantially, and I was able to write in a more aggressive manner without it being without it weighing on me. Aggressive. Okay. Yeah, because the conversation's ramping up. So my question to you was something similar like that, because it's just not me writing the full thing.
So before I comment on Revolut, I wanted to comment on this landlord situation, because I have been in a situation on the other end as a landlord, and what I experienced is actually GPT de-escalating my emotions, or de-escalating my language rather than emotions.
Yes.
Maybe emotions were high, but just like the end product of the email was very and definitely was a good result. I mean, the email that I ended up writing was much better than I initially wanted to write. The way I did this, probably like you, just like share the history and I suggest the best answer, given that I want to achieve this and that. And again, the GPT suggestion was very I don't know how to put it, empathetic, very kind of not confrontational. Not confrontational. I'm missing the word, but just like generally trying to de-escalate and look for solutions, and even using some phrases like I understand, I appreciate, or all that would definitely not come to my mind in that state of, hey, this guy is just trying to cheat on me, cheat me in this situation. He in fact didn't. I mean, this was not his intention. I was just making stuff up. But again, GPT helped me to probably understand it. And So here I would just say that, GPT maybe doesn't take my emotions away from me, because my emotions were there. It just they did not really affect the content, and maybe again, in a way also it calmed me down, so to speak. The Revolut scenario is a little bit different, because I was actually, at this moment, after a year of not using it, it was just like a game.
Right, it was so far away.
A game of chess. Yeah, let's just move this piece, that piece, and see what happens. And I was actually surprised by it in the end, and that it went so smoothly. I think, again, I was lucky, because on the other side there was a person who was responding well to that kind of language, and probably that's not something that happens all the time. What's interesting, of course, that this language is completely not my style, not my language. I would never write it this way. Yeah, I mean, there was no me in that language, in that email at all. So in that way, I was disconnected. But here it was really just like, you are just throwing two balls at each other and see how they bounce, and like, oh, the result is like this. So like, it's interesting. So for me, it was more of I was not really invested anyway. Yeah. Because again, this was already a year. And as I said, I was actually surprised. Generally, what I feel, I don't know if I would call it, that the emotional burden is lower, but I just feel that it's just writing stuff and exploring ideas is just more pleasant as an experience for me right now. Yeah, it's I like blogging. I've kept journaling pretty much all my life. I never really got to blog regularly, because I just found it very I struggle with it. I need a lot of time to do it. The way I would typically write a longer piece would be over many weeks. I would schedule 1 hour slots and just write again. This is probably just the way my brain works. Yeah, I just need to go with very small steps. So, for example, I would just even put it in my calendar. Yeah, this day I'm just going to write a bullet overview of the next section, and because otherwise I just get to I get this anxiety. Yeah, that oh, there is like the stuff to write. I have kids to play with, or it's and. What I noticed is that it's just right now I don't experience this. That the whole process that before took a couple of weeks because of this kind of my attitude is reduced to 3 days. The last piece of bedtime stories was probably written over 3 days, and I just couldn't stop. I was like, yes, this is so I'm going to talk about how to be authentic. I'm going to give this. I'm like, these are crazy ideas. And it's just, again, it's, you are focusing, you're experiencing the stuff that's nice rather than the stuff that gives you anxiety. Yeah. Probably, again, this is my case, my situation, the way I work, the way I think, and it maybe won't necessarily work in such a way for others, but I just find that my experience is that using GPT just makes many tasks simple or complicated much more pleasant.
Okay. So the follow-up question that I had on the previous one, I think touches on kind of maybe the last section that I typically go to, which is kind of the future of AI. I also see that our time is shortening, but I do want to talk about the limitations that you've had with ChatGPT specifically before all this. But so going back to this Revolut experience that you had, one of the things that I was thinking about when you were describing it, and even when I read the initial post, was, okay, so you're using ChatGPT. On the other end of Revolut, they have most probably a lawyer, some sort of expert.
$500 an hour.
$500 an hour expert, a lawyer. But I generally think that as time goes on, as this tool and many of these other LLMs become more ubiquitous, these types of organizations might start using, maybe not interns, but maybe a lawyer's aid to generate a lot of these kinds of responses.
Yeah.
So my thinking here is that in the very near term future, we're going to have AI speaking to AI with humans pushing that language, pushing that communication to happen. Do you have any initial thoughts on that? Do you think that that's a relevant thing, or that it will happen? And if it does,
sorry,
go
on.
And then the final thing, if it does happen, what kind of situation will come up?
I don't know. I'm not a futurist, as some of your guests, so I try to avoid just making sentences about the future. But what I think is there is a flaw, if I may say so, in this stating in this way, because you just take an interaction that we currently have. Okay, somebody is writing an email, somebody else is reading this email, and then boom, now it's AI to AI, and like. But with the interaction that was previously between humans, now is going to be between AI, maybe with some human supervision. My point is that the whole interaction probably needs to be redesigned, so to speak. Yeah, I don't know how it's going to happen, but it's just like having systems like AI talking to AI just doesn't sound. I mean, again, I might be wrong. Yeah, it's to me this sounds like stuff that is just we are trying to copy the what we currently see, and we don't think about what the possibilities are. Maybe it's just going to be easier to feed those people talking to each other. They are trying to find the solution in a way. Yeah, they're just negotiating the way to the solution. One way or another. Maybe it's just easier to build a constraint, to feed constraints into a system that will just give the solutions to them. Yeah. So again, I'm not saying that this is the great solution. It's just one of the solutions. I often think in these situations about. I don't remember exactly, but like when first, I think that the story goes that when first TV was invented. People would try to imitate radio on TV, essentially, or like whether it's like you don't capture the whole kind of the vastness of this new tech, of this new this new tool. You just see this as okay. So how, or maybe like even more close, more relevant example is like we had internet, and then everybody said yeah, it's like newspapers but online. Yeah, so let's just like move all the newspapers online, and we are going to be done. Of course we are not done. Yeah, so because it's just this is not how this things works. The new tech, it's like new paradigm, new interactions, and we are just going to figure it all out, and this is what's exciting. So the example of AI talking to AI to me sounds too much like trying to move newspapers to the internet.
That's a really interesting idea. I hadn't thought about that before, but it makes a ton of sense. And I guess the exciting part is as we figuring this out, maybe it will be like radio to TV. Most probably not, but I think the exciting part is figuring out what this new structure will actually look like.
Exactly. Exactly, because I mean, for sure, this just opens doors and opens spaces, universes that we have not thought about, and just like with Hollywood or film or all that. Yeah, it's just you have new model of entertaining people and new way of telling stories and all that, and I don't know what's around the corner. I'm just trying to peek, and I can't wait, because to me it's very, very exciting.
I'll have to find a futurist that focuses on like customer service and ChatGPT, invite them on, and then send you a summary of the discussion there.
I'm definitely going to follow your conversations closely. But what I do want to make, a point that I'm sure I know companies who are already exploring this. Of course. Board levels, lower levels, and like it's just crazy the opportunity that's there. If you are not exploring this, I mean, not you, but if any company that you're just you're already late, and I think that the what's different about this transition is that it's going to be very fast, and again, maybe that means that whoever starts faster will have a huge advantage, or maybe it means the opposite. Maybe like it actually doesn't really matter because like everybody will be onboarded soon. So again, I'm not predicting the future. I'm just saying that what I think is that this is going to be faster because again, exponential growth and technology is they go together.
Yeah, I completely agree. There's a Twitter post that I shared yesterday. I can't remember the name of the company. It's Air something or other. I'll have to put it into the show notes. But it was a very first attempt of using LLMs with text to voice to communicate and follow up with potential sales leads. So I believe it was a Tesla Motors LLM thing where they shot off an LLM to communicate with somebody who had, I think, been searching on the website and who was thinking about buying a Tesla, but who hadn't gone through the whole process and actually bought the Tesla. So this AI is communicating to this guy as if it's a human. So it doesn't say that I'm an AI, and it follows up to try and sell to sell the car to them. The problem with this example was that there was a big pause between every response. So for those of us that are aware that these things are possible, it's like, okay, this is clearly an AI or somebody that's very slow, and it kind of breaks the fluidity and the flow of the conversation. But I think in the next couple of years we're going to see a lot of these things get pretty close to what it's like to being a human, and these sorts of things are going to take off, but we'll see.
I'm just noting because I want to make a comment later, but I want to comment on what you just said about this interaction. I had an interaction very recently, like 3 days ago, with my bank. I mean, online bank. In fact, Poland is very advanced in terms of online banking. They have good customer service. And I was just talking to this representative, just trying to solve some problem. And then at some point, the representative said something like, okay, so do it now. I will wait for you to finish because I really want to make sure you are going to succeed, or something along those lines. And I was just like, is this a machine that's been overtuned with like kind of positive words, or this is actually a person who is behind the screen? So again, I mean, 3 years ago, maybe there would be some doubt, but you generally would bet, no, this is a person. I mean, machines can't do that. Today, machines can do it, and it's amazing that we, so it's like there is a phrase in English, uncanny valley or whatever. This was this kind of uncanny experience that I had, that is this a machine that's trying to kind of like cuddle me and tell me like I'm going to stay here until you finish it, or this is actually a person? Another thought I had, because we are focusing about GPT, the topic of my article was GPT, but of course this is also tip of the iceberg. Both in terms of the OpenAI, who is providing those models. It's just one of the players, and this is like space which is growing and evolving in an amazing way. And then this mode of using AI, or even using LLMs, because AI in itself, machine learning is not a new thing. I mean, we are just like crazy about LLMs right now because it's kind of boomed in front of our eyes, but it's not something completely new. But this chat mode and for LLMs it's the tip of the iceberg. I mean, it's probably the easiest way that a normal person can interact. Hey, do this. But there are, use cases and technologies and things that you can do with these LLMs outside of ChatGPT, or outside this kind of ChatGPT kind of mode, that are also now being actively explored. Yeah, like, hey, how can we, you said it, like maybe analyze our documents and like embed them in some space that like this model can access, and then just like work with it. Or maybe how we can actually use the model and connect, give it some skills. Yeah, just extend it, because I mean, probably the listeners know that GPT has a historical kind of cut. Yeah, that it doesn't have access to current modern events, but you can extend it. You can, and there are even plugins probably now on the GPT. But what I'm saying is that this is a puzzle that you can then kind of incorporate into your wider I don't know, business process or whatever, and try to improve it. So because you started saying about this customer representatives, yeah, and how will they be, or I know content creators that are going to be, maybe using, or maybe they are going to be replaced or reduced in number because of ChatGPT. The use cases are probably much broader than just this particular kind of chat-like conversations, or craft me a cover letter, and then you go into how to connect the LLMs with some other modalities like visual processing, and it's just crazy. And like I can't even again express my excitement. It's just everything's around the corner. It's just going to roll out in front of us. I want to be part of it. Yeah.
Yes. I'm right there with you. That's also one of the reasons that I started this consultancy, to be. It's almost a way of forcing you to become, or to be in the mix, right? Like, in order to stay relevant, in order to stay in business, you need to be up to date with everything as much as possible, and more so than your clients. It's tremendously exciting. I also think that, like, for instance, there was a new tool. I haven't implemented it yet, but I found you can start to implement, I think it's GPT-4 into Excel documents, right? So I'm not necessarily the greatest when it comes to Excel, like creating formulas and things like that. I never got into it. But now you might not need to, right? You can just tell Excel to create some sort of form that you need, and it would be able to create the formulas, the structure, etc. So
yeah. So I think what you're referring to is called Code Interpreter. It's a new feature that has been rolled out by OpenAI, I think, like over the last month or so. It's only for the paid subscribers. But what you can do is upload a file, like an Excel file or any other file, like a screenshot, I guess, as well. I'm not sure whether screenshot works, to be honest, but definitely Excel file, and then ask it to maybe analyze it for you, maybe present or like propose some summary of what's inside, or even like what I understand you were thinking about, write some code to maybe extend this. And in fact, I just did it today. I was just I wanted to write a code just to process some file, and again, something that would maybe take me an hour with the research took me like under 2 minutes. I know people who, I have friends who used this tool for like Power BI dashboard creation. I'm not sure whether you're familiar, like just like this online kind of Power BI is like an online dashboarding tool that you can like build, like present data with. Yeah, it's not like it's there is data in the background, and then you can like and you can use, or you can use the GPT help or some kind tool like that to help you build these things. And again, it's just like whenever you consider the opportunity, there will be opportunity. It's not that it doesn't make mistakes. It hallucinates. I for example, like now I'm building like a personal productivity tool where I want to like open a window on my laptop quickly, write like, hey, schedule a meeting for this and that, or like remind me tomorrow about this and that, and just forget about it. It's like a simple tool, but from the code perspective, it's not very advanced. But then when you integrate it with LLM for analyzing this text, you realize that it's kind of like a random process. Now it becomes a random process because your prompt might cause it to, take some action in specific situation and some action in some other situation. And it doesn't feel like, I mean, I'm again a computer scientist by education, and I worked as software engineer, and software engineering is a very organized process. I mean, it's a creative process, but once you know the solution, there are certain steps that and here you just build the solution and kind of experiment. Okay, will this work? Will that work? Like maybe again, this is a matter of time, and we'll just figure it out, and like we will know how to navigate. The initial thought that I had was that ChatGPT is tip of the iceberg. Behind there is like a revolut. Like there are models that are being deployed as we speak. Again, Meta earlier this week that are going to enable, and this is an open source model, and you can use it commercially. It's just crazy. I mean, this is like it's mind blowing. Like like how many opportunities this enables. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I think that there are too many opportunities. I've talked about this on the podcast before, right? Like, and I think we even mentioned it at the beginning. There's too many things coming about for one human being to keep up with.
Yeah.
For instance, the Excel thing that I was mentioning, it was actually part of this AI tool repository that I check in all the time. It's I think it's called. There's an AI for that, and there's something like 10,000 different new AI tools, whether they're just plugins for an Excel or plugins for a website or, generated and all these sorts of things. I've used these, you can upload a document and then you can chat with the document, right? So you're able to ask like, well, what's the summary of this document, or where in this document does it say X, Y, or Z? And it just spits it out for you. I see we're already over the time.
It's okay. I mean, as long as you have time, I'm getting tired, of course.
Yeah,
it's
me
late,
too.
But it's either way. We can continue a little bit, or we can call it a day.
Yeah, no, I think maybe the last big section that I want to touch on that we talked about before is kind of the failure of ChatGPT, or some issues that you had with it. So I think for the audience, we've expressed our fascination with the future. We've touched on some of the things that might happen, but let's maybe bring the conversation back down a little bit to earth and make it a little bit more, how should I say, not super exaggerative, right? So what are, like we've talked about hallucinations, what are some of the issues that you had with ChatGPT throughout this process of several months using it in your daily life?
I mean, the first thing that I want to make that I want to comment on is that I'm using GPT-4 pretty much all the time, and I often hear people complaining about GPT quality, and they're actually using the free version.
Yeah.
If you are using free version and you don't get the results you want, probably upgrading to GPT-4 and paying $20 a month is the solution.
I highly recommend it.
Yeah. But of course there are problems. So the tricky, there are a few things that can come to my mind immediately. First thing is that this authenticity versus non-authenticity, and this is probably not the problem of the GPT as a tool. I mean, it's not some bug in the tool. It just allows people to create generic content, and generic content is crap, and it's not something that we enjoy, I guess, and that's now probably flooding many spaces. I even touch on this, as I said on my last article. I have a good friend who is a kind of like an artist, and she even like recently we had a similar conversation about this, and she was complaining about this kind of generic too polished or too good content, and she said that it's the rough edges that are like special and like that are make the beauty, so to speak. So and it is an interesting kind of area, like whether if we abuse it in a way, or if you like use it in a way that doesn't maintain this authenticity, whether we lose something, or whether there will be majority of this kind of let's say free riders who won't make any effort, because again, making it authentic is an effort. That I commented on it earlier, and there will be a lot of free riders who will just suddenly become bloggers, or suddenly will share a lot of content, and everybody will be worse off, because like those who are really valuable will just drown in this flood. So this is something I think about, maybe I worry about. I explored it a little bit in this latest post about bedtime stories. There are, of course, just bugs in the system. So the GPT can give you wrong information. It can get confused. The problem is, and that's probably the experience of everybody who tries it, that it always talks to you as if it just knows everything, and like it's just super correct, and like it's kind of, you have to I recently had an experience. I wanted to I had some outline, maybe like a draft, bullet points, and then I wanted to make it into a final form, and then it gave me a final form, but one of the items was missing. Yeah, so I mean, hello, that's not what that's not what I requested. Yeah. The good thing is that when you are careful with this, and when you know where what to look for. Unfortunately, the dog is barking right now. I don't know if the mic is picking up.
I don't hear it. No.
It's good. So when you know what to look for, you can probably avoid these situations, and definitely you shouldn't just believe anything it tells you. And again, sometimes it's also a matter of experience to know when it will be right, or when it's more likely to be not right. Yeah. Again, like there are certain questions that can be kind of push the model down a certain path of creativity, let's say. The good thing also is that you can always, first of all, you can make sure to include some quality expectations in your initial prompt. And that's quite useful. If you're writing a code, make sure that it writes secure code, or a code without bugs, because that might be this might be important constraint. And second thing is that you can, if you spot something, if you review it, you can either ask, "Are you sure?" And sometimes this already gives interesting results. Sometimes you can just like, no, this is not wrong. This is not correct. And as you know, GPT always apologizes and just goes with either correct version, hopefully, or sometimes not correct version. So another fail mode, if I can call it like this, is this LinkedIn style with anything I mean, even if I try to push it, if I try to make it sound authentic, when I use LinkedIn in my prompt, it just goes high wire. It has also a tendency to maybe even be too like when you write something about LLMs, maybe it will add some stuff that is too positive about LLMs, I don't know if this is already there, consciousness kind of unrolling in front of our eyes. But there are certain topics and certain words that are triggering, again, like LLMs, that like as a topic would probably you would want to review more. LinkedIn is something that you review more. But then again, sometimes you just create content, or you just engage in a conversation where it just doesn't matter. I mean, if I want to have a coaching session, I mean, okay, of course, I don't want to have a coaching session with a therapist who is also a serial killer or whatever, and then like trying to instill some crazy ideas in me. But here it's kind of anything goes situation. Yeah, it's like up to you to. It's more like bouncing ideas, and that mode, I think, is probably even particularly valuable for me. Maybe also because I'm focusing so much on this mode as a kind of extension of my thinking, rather than hey, I want to craft a perfect cover letter. Or hey, give me like the names of 10 US presidents. I mean, this is not the typical case I use. Yeah, even if I want to create a cover letter, I want it to be my cover letter. It's going to be reviewed by me. It needs to resonate with me, and here experience is generally good. I must also say that, again, trying different tools, at the moment, I find GPT-4 probably the most useful. Then again, I probably haven't really experimented with those alternatives so much, because I had, like, you know, I have so much experience with the GPT, and so good experience, like the experience is generally good, that I go to experience, I go to try other model, and it's just like I try to replicate what I just did with GPT, and it doesn't do it right. And then I say, okay, forget it. I will just stick to GPT. So hallucinations is a problem. Overconfidence is a problem. Authenticity is a problem, and this is related to just like certain, I guess, words triggering certain styles, and you just create stuff that's not very personal. I mean, of course, you know, I'm not using it to do math or something like that. There are probably people who are just using this tool to do wrong things. And you probably just need some knowledge about how this operates in the background, what has it actually, again, the way it works, it still feels magical, but I do have some idea what's in the background and like what kind of math is behind it. And you know that this kind of math won't allow it to figure out what's a good investment. At least it's my opinion. Yet people, like, I think there is even a Twitter account, like, you know, investments by GPT. I mean, it's an amusing account, but I mean, this is not a tool. Given its current shape and the knowledge that it has, it's not a tool that I would consider a valuable, you know, asset management assistant.
I think that's a really good point, because when it first came out, or maybe a month or two after it came out, I saw another article going a little bit viral, and it stated something like ChatGPT chose 10 stocks that did better than, you know, the top 10 hedge funds or something like that. But you know, you never saw another article about that, right? So the chances that it just got lucky are pretty high, or that it picked, you know, the right stocks for a very specific time period. But you know, I think going to the point that you just said, if people are going to be using it outside of its, you know, relatively large constraints or small constraints, to do things that it's not necessarily built for, then they might get burned with that experience of AI or ChatGPT, and then their entire experience with AI, LLMs, etc., might be jaded for the considerable future. So I think that if people are going to be using this extremely powerful tool, one, they should be using the paid version, because I find it to just be vastly superior to the other ones. And two, is to kind of learn what it's to be used for, and then, you know, play within those confines.
And actually, I agree that people are the first experience, maybe bad experience, maybe the experience with the free version just puts them on the path. This is just hype, And again, I definitely sound like a person who is excited, maybe even too much, but I definitely also feel that this is not only hype, that this is a very fundamental technology, that this is important. And then another, so I actually have many friends who I talk regularly who don't share this excitement, and they are maybe even surprised by my attitude. A couple of weeks ago, I was talking to my brother. He is not a tech geek; he's a different kind of person. And I was telling him about this, and even like gave him a link and asked him to try it out. And next day, he sent me a screenshot with him asking this GPT what is going to be the weather like in the place he lives tomorrow. And he said, what is this? This is pointless. Google knows this, and this doesn't. Then I sent him my article.
Another viewer, another reader.
But in fact, I if you can add the link to the bedtime story article in the show notes, because I think that this is actually I mean, you said that bedtime stories is not particularly entertaining topic. I really found it quite entertaining to write. And I really think that this is, in terms of like know-how and like insights, this is much deeper than the first one. Yeah, the first one is just like skimming through different examples. And here you really get to kind of experience how I interact with the model, what are my tricks, what the model responds. I give variety of prompts and answers, and it's nowhere near in terms of popularity the first article. But my personal opinion is that if you read it, you will probably get more value if you are planning to be a GPT user yourself.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll include. I've been making notes as well, so I'll include a number of different things in the show notes with your blog, of course, incorporated into it. I think we have done a pretty good job of covering most of the things that were written in your article, and many things that I don't think we did think that we would talk about. Do you have maybe kind of a final thought that you want to share with people listening? I think the inspiration, motivation, and excitement that both of us feel for this profound technology has really been expressed multiple times in the
so I don't want to repeat that. I don't want to repeat that. I mean, I think maybe one thing that I would want to leave people with is just like, experiment, learn this, like just try it yourself. And maybe this first article that I wrote did a good job just showing different like small use cases and maybe like giving inspiration, because it's a tool that you need to learn how to use, and not that ChatGPT will be for us forever. Probably the way we use it is going to change, and the way we use generally LLMs is going to be different, but I mean, this is what we have right now. We can learn it, we can interact with it, and just figure out the way to make it valuable. And I think that the best way to do it is just through experimentation and just learning yourself.
I think that's a perfect way to end the podcast. A little bit of relevant, tangible advice for people. Michael, thank you so much for spending so much time to
it's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure. Thank you. This did not feel like a podcast at all. I mean, not that I have experience. It's my first one, as you know. It was really, really cool to talk with somebody who shares my excitement. As I said, my closest friends don't really share it that much. So, it was an interesting conversation. Happy to do another round whenever you feel like.
Maybe we should reflect a little bit on what was talked about, and if there was like a big section that was missing, or if there's any like really new interesting things that we need to talk about, we can come back on. I'll of course have your article and your blog in the show notes. Is there any other place that you want people to reach out to you or follow you that I can include?
My online presence is mostly LinkedIn, and the LinkedIn article is how we connected. I also have a Twitter account, but that's not really active. If people want to reach out, either LinkedIn or Twitter is fine. And I just want to also say that I'm open for coffee. Yeah, it's not like I want to for business as well. But if somebody just wants to talk how to use it, share experience, it also sounds like an interesting conversation for me. So please reach out.
Perfect. I'll include all that, and thanks again for coming on. It was informative and also really enjoyable.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for listening to this week's Future Tech and Foresight podcast. If you like what you've heard here, there are, of course, a number of ways that you can support the podcast. The best way would be to leave a review on Apple Podcasts or give a rating on Spotify, which you can find a step-by-step explanation for on the futuretechandforesight.com website. Alternatively, feel free to leave a comment either on the episode show notes or the YouTube channel where you can see video recordings of the interviews. And finally, if you are part of an organization that is aware of the disruptive and transformational impact that emerging and future technologies will bring and want to know more, please get in touch to hear about the strategic foresight services that we offer and how we can help future-proof your organization and take advantage of the phenomenal opportunities available to survive and thrive in the future.
A lot of future-shocked people and future-shocked institutions in our society are simply overwhelmed.
Once there is superintelligence, the fate of humanity may depend on what the superintelligence does.
Science fact is catching up to science fiction.
The first truly intelligent machine will be the last invention that humanity needs to make.
The only scarcity that will exist in the future is that which we decide to create ourselves as humans.
Within a 10-year design revolution, we can have all humanity living the highest standard living anybody's ever known.
Progress is accelerating at an exponential pace, and it's going to reach a point where progress is so fast it's going to be a singularity.
We are probably one of the last generations of Homo sapiens.
Every single headline points to the birth pangs of a Type 1 civilization.